Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the United Stand. I'm Mark Goldbridge and I'm joined by Paul Ince. How you doing, Paul?
I'm fine, thank you, Marky. How are you?
Yeah, good. We're going to be talking about, well, it's Ralph Rangnick's last game. It could be up to 10. We're hearing this morning Manchester United's last game, although some of them probably won't get picked anyway. We'll have a little chat about this player awards being cancelled because the players are embarrassed. Probably a good move there. I also want to get Ince's thoughts on players he'd be bringing in this summer and players he'd be bringing out. Well, probably more positions, etc. But in relation to just a little bit of breaking news, which we'll probably touch on a little bit later, apparently the Dean Henderson move to Newcastle is not as advanced as 99% Manchester Evening News said yesterday. That's coming from the Telegraph and the Mail. Newcastle not happy with the £40 million fee and Bournemouth potentially taking a look as well. The Mail are saying that Harry Maguire's future may be in trouble, as well as it being Ralph Rangnick's job as well. And Simon Stone reporting that Erik Ten Hag will have a thorough meeting with Ralph Rangnick early next week to discuss the issues within the team and transfers. But he's purposely avoided him this week because of the last game against Palace. And Ten Hag's basically been in London whilst Rangnick's in Manchester sorting out the team. So first of all, though, Paul, congratulations. Talking about new managers, you've got I don't know, can I announce how many years it is, or should we just say it's Paul Ince Reading manager?
Yeah, Paul Ince Reading manager. New contract.
New contract. I know. You know what? I nearly said it then. I was going to go. My brain kicked in. That's all right. But no, great news. You've kept him up, and a good opportunity to get back into management. Be a difficult year potentially next year, but stabilise the club. It's a bit like United in a way, isn't it? It's about stabilising the club and then building from there.
Yeah, it is very, very much so. And I think, listen, it was tough this year. As I said on the show, we've been speaking about it week after week. And it can be a stressful job at times. When you're thinking about managing a football team to stay in the Championship, it's not just about the players, and people don't really understand the details of being a manager and what stress it can put on you. And it's not just about the players. You're talking about, Reading's a fantastic football club. It really, really is. The people are great, the infrastructure's great, stadium, training ground. But if we'd have gone down this season, there would have been so many redundancies, from admin to the canteen people to the kit man staff that lost their jobs. So basically, you're kind of fighting not just for the players, you're fighting for everyone to keep their jobs.
Yeah.
And all these families, they've got mouths to feed. They've got kids in it. So that type of pressure this season, they're the things that go through my mind, to get these results. So to get the results that we got to with 2 games to spare, was a great achievement from everyone, not just myself. And I've decided to put myself back into that game again. And listen, it's a club that can go forward. It's a club that we've got an embargo next season, which is going to be tough with the budget that we've got. But if we can get out, stabilise the club again, then the next year after that, the embargo will be lifted. So hopefully we can start pushing forward. But listen, it's exciting times. It's always a tough decision. With my wife and family being up north for me, being down south. But it's something that I'm looking forward to and excited about. And you mentioned before about, the Player of the Season awards and not having them at United.
Yeah, so these are if anyone who doesn't know, we'll let Paul talk about this, but they normally happen every year. You'll have been at them, Paul. I'm sure they didn't get cancelled when you were there. Big prestigious events. I mean, we normally do a show saying who should get most improved and this, that, and the other. So United have cancelled them out of embarrassment, which I think is the right decision. But what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's the wrong decision. I do. Listen, we finished the year before. Reading finished 7th in the Championship, point away from the playoffs position. This season, they finished 4th from bottom. So it's been a disastrous season in those terms.
Yeah.
But whether you finish bottom of the table or top of the table, there always has to be a players' award ceremony. There always has been. The fans have to have a vote. Whether they say, well, we've been cracked this year, they still have to have a vote. What's the best young player?
Yeah, that's a good point about the young team that's just won the FA Youth Cup as well.
Yeah, the ladies team. All these people. We had a ceremony 2 weeks ago. It was the youth team, the under 23s, the ladies team, the first team. And everybody came, the sponsors, the people, who run the club. It was a big get together, about 250 people, and the ceremony was fantastic. And sometimes even in a team where a team's not doing well, as Man United haven't done this season, you still want players or individual players to be recognised for their performance. If you say, I mean, if I was looking at Man United play, you'd just say probably player of the season, probably Ronaldo or David Gea.
Who would you actually? That's a good point. I was going to ask you that anyway. Who would be your Man United player of the year? Because it would come down to one of those two. So who would you go for?
I'd go for Ronaldo. I really would. I think we sat back here 9 months ago, and everyone was questioning Ronaldo. Well, he doesn't press, he doesn't do this, he doesn't do that, and we were saying, well, listen, he started off like a house on fire. He's got important goals in the Champions League. So and then
2 hat-tricks as well.
Yeah, people were questioning him, saying, well, he doesn't press there. Ronaldo's never pressed. He's a goal scorer. And if you put the ball in the right areas, he will score goals. And that's exactly what he's done at 37 and continued to do it. I think, 18 goals I think he's got this year.
Yeah.
That's phenomenal.
In the Prem, yeah, which is not hard. It's not easy to do.
It's not easy. That's phenomenal, in a team that's been underachieving this season to still get those numbers. You'd have to say 7 for sure. David Gea has been brilliant, really has. When you talk about, a couple of years back when Dean Henderson came back, we thought there was going to be a fight for the place. Everyone was saying David Gea was going to go to Real Madrid. Henderson played the last few games to the back towards the end of the season. David Gea said he wants to fight for his place, and he's had that competition that's made him perform the way he has this season. So those players need to be recognised, but more so the young players. In the ladies' team, they need to be recognised. You can't just say, "Oh well, because we finished 6th or 7th, we're going to scrap the players' awards." I don't think it's right. You can't. So then, if you finish 2nd or 3rd next season, okay, so we finished 2nd or 3rd, or we won the title, so we're going to have the players' award. Kind of it both ways.
Well, I can tell you what, Paul. It's an interesting look at it, because I think my initial reaction was that, they are an embarrassment, and not having an award ceremony is probably a good idea, because you can imagine what the backlash would be. But then again, the way you've put it, it has me thinking that, are they doing it because it's just the easy way out? We don't get on with each other. It's a toxic dressing room. We don't want the backlash. We'd rather just go off on holiday and not have an end of season awards. And, ultimately, does that set a precedent for, we only finished mid-table, let's not bother with it next year? I certainly think that the more I think about it, probably more I sway towards yourself. I mean, I would go with De Gea as player of the year, just to give the other side, because I think that whilst it's been an appalling season, he has been fantastic. I think Ronaldo will win it, but I think De Gea would get it for me. But ultimately, one of those two players deserves to stand up on the stage and get an award in front of those players who haven't delivered. Humiliate them. Not in a way where you say you're all rubbish, but look, I actually came out with an award that the fans voted for this year. You lot were nowhere near it. I think it'd be interesting to know what the true story is with that, because it sounds to me like the players have voted against having it. Well, sorry, it's Man United Football Club. We have an awards year every year, and you bloody come in. But maybe it's player power. I don't know. It's hard to predict, isn't it?
But also, it's it can't be just about player power, because obviously there are sponsors at the club. There are people who look forward to these events at the end of the year. There's people who might not get a chance to just go and shake Cristiano Ronaldo's hand and say, well, or meet Cristiano Ronaldo or David Gea, to say well done. These people will pay vast of money to go to these events, to get a table at a players' year, and some of these people never get an opportunity to meet these players or shake their hands, so I think it's wrong. I think it's bang out of order. Even the younger players, the younger kids, they might never get a chance to see Cristiano Ronaldo or shake his hands or speak to him, or all these things that you'd want to experience. It's been prevented now because they've finished, or because they've had a mediocre season. It's not right. And if that's the case, then next year, if you finish 1st or 2nd, then do the same, because you've set a precedent now. Yeah.
Well, just a good question came in from Joshua there. He was asking, and I would never have asked it. So, Joshua, thank you. I mean, that's the great thing of having the live community, that you will get some good questions in there. He wanted your thoughts. We've spoken about Erik Ten Hag loads of times, because was it him or Poch? And then it was him, and we spoke about that. But Steve McClaren coming back to Manchester United as an assistant coach. What's your thoughts on that? And have you crossed paths with Steve McClaren? Because he was at United in '99, so you wouldn't have done, but you'd probably given up. You'd probably retired from England, haven't you? But Middlesbrough, maybe.
I had Steve McClaren at Middlesbrough.
Yeah. What's your thoughts on him then?
Listen, I think my first impressions on Steve McClaren is that he's a fantastic coach. He puts some very good coaching sessions, and he gets the lads at it. It was a bit of a, I wouldn't say surprise, but I didn't see it coming. You know, as a Steve McClaren, you know, has managed at Derby, he's managed at various clubs. Then he took the position as a consultant at Derby. So I never thought that I'd see him get back into this line of work. But he knows Man United well. He knows the DNA of Manchester United. But first and foremost, he's a very, very good coach, and I think the lads would love his coaching sessions. And that's the most important thing. That's the most important thing, is that you want the players to come in each day to say, yeah, we're going to have a great coaching session. We've got a good coach. Brian Kidd was brilliant at it. So was Archie Knox. You know, we just look forward to coming to training, and that's part of the culture environment of the club. You know, by the looks of it, they need to change that. Last year there was so many stuff coming out of the changing room, leaks out of the changing room, people not getting on. You know, that all needs to stop next season. I think bringing Steve McClaren in, he knows the game, he's managed. It's a smart move. He worked in Holland. I think that might have.
Well, Erik ten Hag wants him, which is what I was going to say next. It's not, you know, it's Mike Phelan. That was a bit of a United decision, wasn't it? You know, but this is, although it is a United old boy, it's one United apparently not sure about. But Erik ten Hag has said, no, I want him, because their paths have crossed. It's just coincidence that he's formerly been at United.
Yeah, yeah, and it works great for us. It works great for everybody. And listen, if he wants him, he's his man. They've probably got the same way of thinking, considering they're both managed in Holland, the style of football. That's the most important thing, because as a manager, you have a philosophy how you want your team to play. How does the Manchester United playing in next season, year after year after? And that same philosophy has to be the same philosophy of the coach that he's employing. Because if he's going to go on and put sessions, it has to be based on philosophy that the manager wants his team to play. There's no good McClaren saying, well, I think we should play a different way, because he won't be at the club. You know, they've probably spoke about football, you know, all those types of things, players, we're going to play. And they've kind of, it's just met, and I thought, yeah, get him on board. And it's kind of exciting, really. You know, it really is, because you always want someone, you go back to the Ollie era with, you know, Carrick and Nicky Phelan, and sometimes you wonder, was it just job for the boys? Yeah. You know, this doesn't seem like a job for the boys type of appointment. It seems someone who United could really benefit from. And as I said,
well, it's not a popular opinion. You know, doing these shows every day, there's a lot of people in the community who don't like it. But I'm with you. I'm like the fact that it isn't a jobs for the boys because the club haven't chosen it. Erik ten Hag has insisted on this. It's just coincidental. So in some ways, you know, you get that United connection, but it's actually what the manager wants. He's a complete outsider as well. It's like Sir Alex Ferguson coming down and saying he wants an ex-United coach from the 70s or something like that. You know, he's still the boss, but he wants that person.
Listen, at the end of the day, and it's pathetic for me that you said, oh, well, I know a lot of people not really happy about it. You know, he's an assistant coach.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, we can't get to a situation where people are voicing their opinions on who Ten Hag brings in on his staff.
Yeah. You've got to back him, haven't you?
You've got to back him. I mean, we can't have all this negativity, you know, before the season's even started. You know, I don't get it. Steve McClaren's a fantastic coach, and any of the players, ex-players at United will tell you that. He's a very, very good coach. And if he's going to help Man United to get to where, or Ten Hag to get where he wants to get to, then it shouldn't be a problem. If Man United start losing games, they're not going to blame Steve McClaren. They could be blaming Ten Hag. You know, so the coach hasn't really come into play. Ten Hag has to feel comfortable with the staff that he's got. Ten Hag has to have all the tools that he needs to take Man United to where they want to go. And if he wants Steve McClaren in, then it has to happen, because we can't have this situation where, you know, was 6 months down the line. I mean, back to where we were with the previous managers. You know, we said before, he needs to give him an opportunity. They need to back him on a 2-3 year project for whatever he signed, and just try and take this club to where it needs to be. We can't have all this like negativity again before we've even kicked off the season. You know, because there'll be times where Ten Hag will bring players in and fans will go, oh, I don't like him, we should go for him, which I get. Fans and entitled to their opinions. You know, we just got to have trust and faith that Ten Hag knows what he's doing. And we'll see that. The thing is, and it's, when I say a building session, it's like when I was at United with Fergie, I came in '89. Now our remit was to win the title.
Yeah.
Not that year or the year after, but to win the title. That was Sir Alex Ferguson's remit. We had to win the title. But when you're building the team, you still have to be winning trophies and you still have to be competing. So there's not this kind of, oh yeah, well, we haven't won a trophy this year because we're building for the title or to get closer to Liverpool and City. You have to keep winning trophies. 89, we won the FA Cup. The year after, we won the Cup Winners' Cup. You know, so there was a kind of process of winning trophies. And then we obviously ended up winning the big one in 92, 93. Yeah. So it's not a case where you get a free hit for the next 2 years. You know, on that road, you have to keep competing and winning trophies. And I think that's always been the Man United way. Even when I left, Sparky left and Konchelsky's left. You know, Fergie started to rebuild again, and they won the title that year after. So you have to keep winning trophies at Man United. We're not going to say, yeah, well, it's 10 hours, we got 2 years, but we're getting a little bit closer to Liverpool and City, but we haven't won a trophy. Man United have to keep winning trophies or look like they're getting close to winning trophies while you're rebuilding the team. That's what Sir Alex was so great at.
I think that's the importance of Sunday being in the Europa League, because if you win the Europa League, it's a tournament that's not got Liverpool and Man City and Chelsea in. It also gives you Champions League, and it's also a reset because we haven't won a trophy for what will be 5.5 years. So that gives you an opportunity there. And I agree. I think that ultimately this is. I think the worst thing we can do is go back and look at the past, because that's something United have probably tried to do for the last 9 years and it's failed. But you can look at Liverpool as much as you can look at Sir Alex Ferguson when he first came in. Look at Klopp when he came in. It's not looking back like a history channel. It's looking back at clubs that have had to rebuild, and it is about. I think Klopp got to Europa League final in his first season. I don't think they won it, but I think they won a Carabao Cup as well. So these things are really important. There was a question coming in, Paul, about Harry Maguire, which is quite interesting because he is in the news this morning. Basically, potentially a player on his way out of Manchester United. Maybe, I don't think this summer. I think that's unrealistic. But I think if Erik ten Hag is looking to buy a centre-back, you'd presume that centre-back would play with Varane. And obviously, there's always going to be interchangeability. I mean, look, 3 players I'd love to give you at Reading: Harry Maguire, Scott McTominay, and Marcus Rashford. I think a season in the Championship would do him good. But Maguire...
They're certainly keeping the league, that's for sure.
Well, you never know. You never know. They might find their level. Relegation in the Championship. But they do very well, of course. But on Maguire, my issue with Harry Maguire is that I don't think, and I know you've said this, to be fair, and I know a lot of people have said this, he gets a lot of stick. The stick is not as bad as he is. I think you could put Harry Maguire in a poll against any centre-back in the world and he would lose it at the moment because people are just fed up of him. You know, they don't think he's had a good season. I don't think he's as bad when he's playing well as people think. I still think he's a decent centre-back. But my issue with Maguire, and what I was going to ask you there, is what is his future at Manchester United? He's currently the captain. He cost £80 million. He's he's at Manchester United. He's 29. And for me, on his best day, he's not in the top 10 centre-backs in the Premier League when you think of, which sounds wrong unless you actually list them off. You've got Van Dijk, Matip, Laporte, Stones, Diaz, Rudiger, Romero, Thiago Silva, arguably Gabriel and White at Arsenal, certainly Varane. So even if he is in the top 10, he's right at the end. And for Man United, as a captain, as you've done, and you've played with Robson and Keane and Bruce, if you're a Man United player anyway, you've got to be looking to be firmly in the hopefully top 5 in your position in the league. Is Maguire's future one that's going to be a bit of a bit part player next year and ultimately he'll go? Or do you really see him becoming that after this hard first 3 years?
But listen, I think, you're right. Maguire does get more stick than most people. I think, and sometimes fans are like that. They go from one to another. And there's one day it'd be Fred, and it'd be like, but Maguire seems to be the one. I think with Harry, and I think this is always the problem, and Man United have made this issue because when Man United bought Harry Maguire, people were charging Man United more money than actually the value of the player.
Yeah.
Okay, so
a lot, yeah.
A lot. You know what I mean? We've been sitting ducks for a lot of a lot of teams because they can afford to take the piss basically with how much they want for a certain player. And you could say that about a lot of the Man United players that have come in. You know, with Maguire, if you'd have said Maguire, we bought Maguire for £20 million, we'll be having this conversation now. Okay.
No, because the expectation would be he's
correct.
You know, he's probably going to be a bench centre back, isn't he?
Correct. All right. The fact that Man United had their pants pulled down and if that to pay £80+ million for him, we're expecting this level of centre half that's just number one or number two in his position, and that's been unfair on Harry. In that point of view, the player doesn't choose how much the club's going to pay for him. All he wants to do is go to the club that he wants to go to, and that happened to be Man United, who are desperate to try and rebuild a team, and clubs are charging more money than they should be actually paying for the players. And if you look at 1 to 10 in the centre half positions, will Maguire be in it? Probably not. But you can say that about left backs. You can say that about right backs. You can say that about the whole midfield. A lot, Well,
yeah, 100%. Yeah, I'm glad you picked up on that because the next question was going to be it's not just the centre back with Maguire. Yeah. You can definitely say that about the right backs. You can McTominay and Fred. There's no way they're in the top 10 either. So it's something that runs through the whole team.
Correct, and then that's why I said to you a couple of weeks ago. If you used to name in the Premier League 11, you'd probably only put Ronaldo in there at a push, or David De Gea at a push. You wouldn't put the rest of them in because they've not performed to the way they should. So. Yes, Harry Maguire hasn't had a great season, but then again, nor's Varane. You talk about next year, he wants to bring another centre half in Ten Hag. Varane's this season hardly played. He's had a lot of injuries. So if you do your data, then you kind of think, well, is he going to be able to perform week in and week out next season, Varane? Because he hasn't done it this year. But I just think Maguire's had this year where some things can change. I don't know whether there's an issue in the changing room, as we spoke about before. But the protection that he's had from the midfield players has not been there. And people say Maguire's not quick, he's slow. Steve Bruce wasn't lightning quick, he wasn't quick at all. But you had the protection from someone quick alongside him, or me or Keane in the middle of the park. United didn't have that. The midfield was so open. And it was so easy to get onto Man United's back four and isolate the likes of Maguire. If I'm a manager against Man United, I'm setting my team up so we can isolate the two centre halves. That's what I'll be doing all the time. A pure pace kills them. So I should know that as a Man United manager. I need to get that protection in front of my two centre halves. Yes, he's made mistakes, but Lindelof has not been great. Every time Man United have been beat heavily, I think he's been playing. Been involved. You know what I mean? So you've got Maguire, Lindelof, you've got Varane, who's not playing enough games, keeps picking up injuries. So when you talk about needing a centre back, I think you should put an S on that and put centre backs. I really believe that. If Maguire, listen, there's always going to be rumours about players leaving Manchester United, as there's about Rashford and people like that.
Well, he ain't going anywhere, Paul, is he? Because at the end of the day, you've solved the problem. He's probably on 200 grand a week and he cost 80 million quid. Even if United wanted to sell him, there's no way off the back of that. I mean, you struggle to sell many players. You're certainly not going to get a lot of money back for him now. You've got to try and do something with him next year and then maybe next summer. Yeah,
for sure. Listen, I think the most important thing is when you buy a player, and as I said, he's been there 3 years, so obviously he was there when he was 26. You hope to improve him to a level that, you sell him on for even more money, whether it's 100 million, whatever it may be. You see it happen all over the place. Player does well, moves on, he's an asset for you. I think with Maguire, because the fee was so high, you're not going to get £80 million from Maguire.
No way.
Unfortunately it is. But that's not to say that next year under Ten Hag, he'll be refreshed. He starts again. He's playing in a different system. He's playing in a different team. And you might
better coaching, like you said, better coaching.
Yeah, you might see a completely different Harry Maguire. But I think he does need to get two centre backs in. I really, really do. Left back situation's not been great. Where's he gone? Sorry,
you're right about that.
Yeah, Luke Shaw's been out again. He's been getting injured, a lot of injuries. Tellers has come in, hasn't really grabbed the shirt to say I'm here. You know what I mean? I want to be left back next year. He paid £50 million for Wan-Bissaka. He spent most of the season on the bench. What do you do with him? You know, does he want to stay? Does he go to Palace? Does he go? You know, a lot of these questions need to be asked. You know, and you know, as a manager, you look at the squad and you think, can I get the best out of him? Can I get more out of him, or is it best if I got someone else in mind? You know, so they're the decision Ten Hag's got to make. So,
well, here's a question for you then, because you're doing a very similar job at Reading, but with a much less budget. If I said to you, Paul, you're the manager of Man United this summer, I can only give you 125 million, but you can probably sell about 50 million pounds worth. So you got about 175 million, and what's that in the modern day? It's probably four decent signings. Where would you be looking at with that United team? Because you've always said the midfield, but obviously,
if West Ham want 150 million pounds for Rice, that's it's all gone in one bulk, isn't it?
Would you really just do that on one player?
No, I don't think any player's worth 150 million pounds. I think it's ridiculous. You know, I think if you're talking about Messi and Ronaldo in their primes, or Maradona, if he was here today, you'll be you know, paying 150 million pounds for those type of players. But when you look at these ridiculous figures that these managers want for their players, they're way off the mark. But saying that, we have to ever get midfield player in. A midfield player, I think, as I said, Declan Rice will be one. Lad Phillips at Leeds, I think he could be a top player. I mean, if Leeds go down, then obviously he want to stay in the Premier League. I also like the lad at Leeds, Rafinha. I think he's a very, very good player. So I've always said the midfield position is so important. Two holding midfield players who know the roles. It's about knowing your roles. I remember when Man United played Wolves this season away, and Pogba was playing alongside Fred in a holding role. It just didn't work. It didn't work. So we need two centre midfield players. We need a striker for sure. You know, we know I think Ronaldo will stay. I think the signs are that he's going to stay, Ronaldo. But
support. You
need to have a couple of strikers. You know, and it's tough though, because as a manager, when you're trying to get players to come to play for Old Trafford, they can't be decent. I mean, you use the word decent. They can't be decent. They've got to be top players. You know, but these top players want to play. You know, so you know, does that mean them that Fred and McTominay then become squad players? You know, so there's a lot of thinking to do. But I think the midfield area is so important, and up front, you know, it's interesting to see what happens with Rashford. You know, how does he see Marcus Rashford? Does he see him as a left-sider? Does he see him as a striker? Can he play up alongside Ronaldo or another striker if he brings in? So, I mean, they're the areas I'll be looking at. Right back, because obviously looks like Wan-Bissaka's not going to stay. Left back, no one's really nailed it down, have they? So
too much to do, innit? You know, when you actually go through it in one summer, he can't. So he's got to sort of go. Like some people even mention the distribution of De Gea, and I've said, forget about that. You know, that's year one, that's year 2, 3 problem. He ain't going to solve everything this summer, is he?
No, he's not. And this is the same situation that I've got. You know, at Reading, you know, we need to bring in 13 players. You know, and we got a lot of players out of contract, and you want to start rebuilding, but you can't do it all in one go. You got to do it bit by bit and prioritise what you have to do. And I think for Ten Hag is that he's still going to have players there this next season who might be disgruntled and might want to be there. So that's how he gets the change room back to how it was. You know, the reason why we stayed up at Reading, it wasn't just because of the football. It was the togetherness we had in the change room. You know, and I wasn't party to that, but I could sense from speaking to players that it was a different type of vibe. You know what I mean? Everyone got on. There was no bad eggs. He was always pushing for one common goal. Yeah. So I think Ten Hag has to get that environment right in the change room. Because if it doesn't matter who he brings in, what players he brings in, what position he brings in, how much he spends. If you don't get that right, then there's always going to be issues. There's always going to be problems. I don't see these problems come out of Liverpool or City. You know, I don't see it. Always seems to be Manchester United. So he's got enough problems on his hand about having a worrying about David De Gea's distribution. You know, everything needs to be right. The spirit, and I'm sure when he sits down with a team, that'll be one of the first things that'll be on his mind. And the things haven't been right this season. We know that, and maybe that's affected Maguire. Maybe it's affected other players. You know, maybe the focus has always been, oh, I've got to go into the changing room again. Oh, this is going to happen. Don't like this. The spirit's crap. You know, there's no banter. You know, that as a player, I used to love going to the changing room because I guarantee before I walk through the door, you hear someone laughing or something's happened or someone's played a trick on someone, and you know, you could hear it. You know, you can hear it from outside the door. So it was great to go into the changing room. You know, I'm not sure whether that's been the feeling this year for some of these players, and I think that's something Ten Hag has to get right. I'm sure he will do. And if you've got that, then it's a platform to build on. You can't be successful without that. And people don't realise that. People think it's just about the footballers, and you know, it starts from there. It really starts from there. So if you can get that right, and there's going to be players that ain't going to be playing week in and week out. They're just part of the team, and that's how you have to be successful. Not everyone can play, so it's a big job. There's a lot of things to do, but you know, I'm looking forward to it. I'm excited about it. I really am.
Yeah, I am as well. I think, I mean, what I would say is that he's going to have to be almost, well, not a miracle worker. He ain't Jesus, is he? But I mean, at the end of the day, he's a football coach, and he's going to have to really coach, and a lot of things are going to have to go his way. We've all seen transfer windows. You sign 4 or 5 players, and even if Pep or Klopp signs 4 or 5 players, they'd be expecting maybe 1 or 2 to flop, because that's just the way the transfer market works. He needs his signings to hit the ground running. He's then on top of that, I think harder than his signings, you've got players like, well, look who's had a bad season. I'm not saying they're bad players, but Luke Shaw's had a bad season. Bruno's had a bad season. Rashford's had a bad season. Maguire's had a bad season. Varane's had a bad season. That's 5 straight away. Then you've got Fred, McTominay. You know, there's probably 10 players that have had bad seasons, and some 5 or 6 of them are key players, very expensive players, big wages players. Can you take 5 or 6 big players who have had a bad season and turn them into good players in just one summer? I mean, hopefully 3 or 4 can, but I'd be surprised if all 6 of them suddenly become good players, because it's not just under Rangnick, is it? It was under Ollie. You know, if you take someone like Rashford, Maguire, Bruno, they were playing badly under Solskjaer and Rangnick, who've got very different styles of management and very different styles of play. So he's got a hell of a lot to do. I think I'm encouraged, Paul, that you know, he won the title on Sunday with Ajax, and on Monday he's in London working. He's going to be in Manchester working on a week on Monday. I think Gary Neville said he needs to take a holiday, but I think the reality is he knows the enormity of that job, especially when you've got players, you need to buy players and you need to sell players. He obviously feels that from the middle of May to the middle of June is so important. I'll have a holiday maybe at the end of June when I've put a load of groundwork in, and then I'll come back for pre-season.
Yeah, probably he's also thinking that obviously there's a World Cup in November, so he could get a break then, 4-week break then.
Yeah.
But listen, as I said, he wants to, you know, hit the ground running this season. Every manager, when they start the first game of the season, wants to hit the ground running, and you have to put in that preparation beforehand to do that. So, as you said, there's a massive task ahead. You know, he wants to get started now. I'll probably be doing the same. Well, I'm going to manage Man United. I want to get there now. I've done what I've done at Ajax. Now I just want to get there and be part of it and see what's going on. Because you can't just take 3 or 4 weeks off and turn up at Old Trafford and think, oh, I didn't realise this was happening. I didn't realise this was happening. I need to change that. Oh, I need to get rid of him. I need to bring him in. It's, you know, that's why you got the supporting team around him. But I agree with him. If I was manager, mate, I couldn't wait to get him through the front door. But it's funny you just mentioned before about, we talk about recruitment. You talk about people who've not had bad seasons or flops who've played for Man United, and I always go back to recruitment. You know, you think about how many flops of Manchester City had, how many flops of Liverpool had. You know, and then you look at people like Konate, the centre half at Liverpool. You know, look at Diaz. Why were we not in for these players? You know,
well, Liverpool's recruitment is elite. I'll admit that.
Yeah, it's been the same. You know, I mean, in City's, listen, City's still the problem with the fullbacks. They spent £200 million on fullbacks. You know, they've got money at their disposal. But we still need to be competing with these players. You know, Konate and Diaz and all these type of players are just coming on. How come we're not involved in this player coming to Manchester United? Why are these players just getting done and no one knows about it? We knew about Diaz. We watched Diaz in Portugal. We know how good he was. We knew about Konate. There's another one at Seville called Koundé, who's a very, very good centre-half. Very, very good centre-half. But we never seem to be in the ballpark to getting these players at Old Trafford. And it's going to be more difficult now because we're not in the Champions League. next season. So players have to understand that if you're coming to play in the Europa League, hopefully, with the proviso that we get into the top 4 the year after. Now, if they believe they can get in the top 4 after, against the likes of Liverpool, City, Arsenal, Chelsea, Tottenham, then great. But we seem to have, as you said, decent players. Decent players is not good enough to get Man United to where they need to get to. So, yeah, and it will take time. As you said, Klopp's took 3 or 4 years to get the right balance, the ultimate machine. City, they stayed the same. But the unfortunate sad thing is Klopp's going to stay around for 3 more years, and so is Pep by the looks of it. Yeah. So it's not going to get any easier for Ten Hag. It's not. It is. No. You think the gap between those 2 teams compared to United, and yet they're going to be there for another 2-3 years. You can only see them getting better, can't you? City be desperate to win the Champions League. Desperate. Liverpool just keep going and going. So if they're going to be here for the next 3 years, then Ten Hag has that 3 year to get Man United close to them, but then manages still being in place, which makes it even tougher for him.
Well, it'll be a great thing if he can make them compete whilst Pep and Klopp are still in post, because that would be a huge achievement, wouldn't
it? Exactly. That's the thing about it, and he's put his wits up against one of the 2 best managers ever.
Yeah.
But they're in the team, they're in the situation, Liverpool, because they're built so well and they've recruited so well. They haven't got to bring in 4 or 5 players every year. Every time Man United finish the season, we're like, well, you've got to bring at least 4 or 5 in. That's what we've said for the last couple of years, 2-3 years. You've got to bring 4 or 5 in.
And that's on the bad recruitment, isn't it? Every year it's 4 or 5. I mean, when Ollie, at the start of the season when we were talking, we were like, all right, the midfield's maybe a little bit weak, but you don't for a title challenge. We've just registered the worst ever, and considering you played in Premier League Man United sides, the first ever United side not to hit 60 points, probably, unless they beat Palace on Sunday, and definitely the worst ever Premier League side. And yet at the start of the season, we're going, oh, it's been a good summer apart from the midfield. And now we're talking about yet another rebuild, because ultimately, year after year since Sir Alex left, it's been terrible recruitment and massive amounts of money wasted.
It is. And again, and then you lose your manager, then another manager comes in, and he wants another 150 million to spend to change the team. He doesn't do well. We spend another 150 million pound, and now we're in the same situation again. We've got Ten Hag coming in. He wants a war chest to go and, buy the players that he wants. But you can't keep doing that. So, no, I think you're absolutely spot on. I think Liverpool always had 1 or 2. Sir Alex used to do it all the time. He used to have probably had 1 or 2 in the summer. You know what I mean?
It's like adding. You've got a good team. Add 1 or 2 to keep ticking over, sort of thing.
Yeah, keep building. Yeah. As the players are getting older, then he'll add 1 or 2. Like Liverpool have done. They brought in Jota last year. They brought in Diaz this year, and Canate.
Yeah.
Just around what Klopp's doing. City the same. City have already done business with getting Haaland in. That's a great bit of business. Getting him in straight away. So they become stronger now before the season even starts next year.
Yeah.
So they're doing these nice little bits of business, 1 or 2 players. Yet we're sitting there saying we need to bring 4 or 5 in, 2 centre halves. If Dean Henderson goes to wherever he's going to go to, do we bring another goalkeeper in? We definitely need another centre forward. We need a couple of midfield players. We need a ball carrier, someone who can pass and dictate. Like we said, like a Carrick or someone like back in the day. I do have a left winger, right winger. Elanga's done well, but can you rely on him week after week?
Yeah.
I've just talked about 4 or 5, 6 players there. So this is where Ten Hag is at. And as you said, he might come in and he might resurrect the players that we mentioned who haven't performed as well as they like to this season. He might resurrect them and make them better players, because it can happen. I've had it at Reading. I've had players who've not been playing all season, and we've come in and we've, got them playing the way they should be. So it can happen. It's just whether it can happen to all the players who haven't played well this season. But, it's an opportunity for these players. It's an opportunity for Donny van der Beek to come back. He went to Everton. That hasn't really played anything. He might come back. You might see him get more game time. You might see a player that, we thought should be given more time last season, didn't get the minutes that he deserved. So he might have come in with a smile on his face and, listen, Dutch manager, I'm going to show him he knows me from Ajax. So he might be a surprise package. So there's a lot of things that could come out in the next 2-3 months. That's what makes it so exciting, Mark.
Well, it does, and I think that, you know, a lot of people keep saying to me, "What's your predicted 11 for next season?" And we've sort of gone round the houses with it because it's so difficult when you can't solve every problem. And when I go through the team, all right, De Gea's in goal, but I want a right back. I'll probably put Varane, but we need a centre back anyway, whether you play Maguire or not. So that's 2 positions straight away. Left back, we'll probably put up with Shaw. 2 new midfielders, that's 4. We've got sorry, I've got a bloody phone going off here. We've got I mean, there's probably 5 or 6 positions in that starting lineup that I'm not sure what they're going to be. And also, you always want a bit of depth on the bench. So it's really difficult to predict what's going to happen over the summer because it's going to be about what Ten Hag prioritizes with the money he's got. And he will definitely have to go into next season potentially. I mean, right back's an obvious position where he might just have to get by for a season because we're not going to win the league next year. We're going to be in the Europa League, hopefully, and not the Conference League. And we're going to be fighting for 4th. So you would say, I can probably get by with Delo and a young lad, or, you know, if you can get Wan-Bissaka on loan, maybe, I don't know. But yeah, it's very difficult to predict what the lineup's going to be. But what would your expectation be of United next season as a season 1? Because it's very difficult and everyone's got very different ideas. Some people are like, well, we've got to be comfortably top 4, but then we're not comfortably top 4 this year. Arsenal, Spurs, Newcastle, other teams are going to spend money as well. It is year 1. And look, it is the worst ever Premier League Man United side. It is a very toxic environment. You can't just go, well, we've got a new manager now, so we want to be comfortably top 4 and winning the FA Cup. Liverpool and Chelsea have just contested the Carabao Cup and the FA Cup. That's how hard it is to win those. Man City normally win a Carabao Cup or an FA Cup. The big teams aren't taking the Carabao Cup and FA Cup lightly enough that you can go, well, yeah, we're comfortably top 4 in FA Cup. That'll do. It's difficult to even say that. So what do you think? Because I think fans have got to adjust in their own mind as to what their expectation is. Because if you have expectations too high, that's when it becomes dangerous and people start going, oh, he ain't the man. He ain't the man. Yeah. And we don't want that in the first year, unless we lose the first 10 games 6-0, in which case I think he might not be the man.
Listen, yeah, and I think, this is the hardest thing, because at any club with any fans, with the first day of the weekend of the season, every fan has expectation, we're going to go up. We're going to get promoted this year. Now you think, oh, what? Why? I said, well, because we've seen Leicester win the Premier League title. Okay? We've seen, Luton in the playoffs, nearly going up into Wembley. Huddersfield could be in the Premier League. So every fan has an expectation, this could be our year. All right? Yeah. Now, there's those fans and there's the realistic fans. And I think the realistic fans of Manchester United will probably say, yes, exactly what you said. We're not going to win the title next year, but we have to see some progression in the team that we've not seen for a while. We want to see, because everyone's talking about the way Ajax play. I'm not sure whether you can play the way Ajax do and make United play the same way. I think it's a completely different league. It's a completely different way of football.
It'll take time anyway, won't it? It'll
take time. I mean, the model has to be, I know he's got his own philosophy, but the Liverpool model, the City model, fast, quick, incisive football, taking risks, for reward. Even Klopp plays with such a high back 4, because the rewards of that are greater than the actual risks, So I've always felt with Manchester United teams, even in the last year or 2, we were so pedestrian. Everything was sideways, go in, don't go forward, come back out, go back round the other side. It was very pedestrian. I don't think you'll get this with this coach. I think he want to go forward all the time, but that will take time. But in that time, you want to see that progression. There will be times where United will get beat, but there will be times where United will go and beat teams 4 or 5-0. By the way, Ten Hag has got his team set up, and exciting times. I mean, Man United always want exciting football. They've been brought up on that. They've been brought up in exciting football, whether you win or lose. As long as it's exciting, you might win 4-2 or 4-3, but it's exciting. You might get beat 1-0, but hit the bar 5 times and have 20 shots to their 1. That's what United fans want. And if they get that next year and see that next year where it's going forward and it's getting progressive, then it'd be fine.
Yeah.
But then eventually the year after, they said, right, now we feel like we're in a position now where we're comfortable, and the fans believe that we're comfortable, that we can go now and start challenging City and Liverpool. That's what I would look at it. So the expectation for me next year is, yes, has to get in the top 4. I think any team any manager at Manchester United with any team, the expectations has to be in the top 4. Before, in our time, it was about winning trophies, winning titles. You've got to be challenged for titles. I think we're in a situation now where, unfortunately, it's about we have to get into the top 4. That expectation must be into the top 4. And if you can win a trophy on the way, great. If not, top 4 or win Europa League or whatever it may be to get into the Champions League. But expectation has to be top 4. And by doing that, by playing the football that we're now seeing from all these other teams, from Tottenham, Chelsea, even Brentford plays attacking football. I love watching Brentford play. They play a style of football that's attacking and exciting. Brighton, what they did to Man United a couple of weeks ago was embarrassing. Brighton fans were ole. That should happen against Man United teams. Brighton fans are laying against Man United. And I told you, Pop was a very good manager. So, but the style of football that Brighton played was attacking all the time. United haven't been playing that. We've been playing conservative for this season, and that will definitely change under Ten Hag, and that's why I'm looking forward to it. But top 4 has to be a must next season.
Well, that will buy a lot of credit in the bank anyway. I think people almost too much look at position and results, and actually it's logical, isn't it? You've played football. The reality is, if you play good football, people say, would you rather play bad football and win a trophy or good football and be bottom half of the table? And it's like, if you play good football, you're not going to be bottom half of the table. Good football goes hand in hand with progress, which is what United need to do. And I think Ten Hag will either fail or he will succeed because his style of football is entertaining. So to succeed, we will see entertaining football, which will buy him a lot of patience anyway, because ultimately that United team this year, it's 10 points off the race for 4th. 10 points, it's 3 wins really, and United have been dreadful. Terrible football, terrible defence, absolutely boring, negative football. You play 38 games in the way Ten Hag wants to play, you'll pick them extra 10 points up easy. So I expect us to be, I'd agree with you. I think 4th in the top 4 is where United will be if he can implement his ideas quick enough, which is always going to be a big if, and I think the patience definitely needs to be there. But
and that's why he needs to get his players in, and obviously he'll have enough weeks and hours on the training ground through pre-season to implement his ideas. It's not like he's coming in January, hasn't got time to implement his ideas. Every manager in football wants a good 4 or 5 weeks pre-season behind him, so you can put your ideas across, so you're ready to do that at the start of the season. You can't do it midway through the season. He's got enough time to do that, as will I do when I go back to Reading. You want those 4 or 5 weeks. You want those 6, 7 games in pre-season just to see what players you're going to start with. Is your start working? How can you change it? So we should see from day one, a change in the way Man United play. And hopefully we'll eventually see a game where, Man United can go to City and play that way. They can go to Liverpool and play that way, not go there and put 10 men part of the bus, so to speak. I don't think you'll see that with Ten Hag. Yes, you have to be pragmatic at times, but you still should go to these teams and never go at them. And we've been on the hiding. I've done some big hidings: 4-0 Liverpool, 5-0 Cities over the last couple of years. That can't keep happening.
I know. Dylan said there, well, Mark, 10 points is a lot. Well, 10 points is not a lot when you look at the season that we've had. 10 points is 58 points run at the moment. Man United's worst ever points total is 64. So you should be getting that. That's another 6 points straight away. And then I could list a list of my arm how many points we've dropped this season that we shouldn't have dropped. It's ridiculous.
Watford, you could go on.
There's easily you can. United should always be hitting a bad season for United. For me, is 70 points. That's a bad season, not bloody 64 or 58. It's 70, and I would expect. Look, it's very hard to predict, and I'm not going to put any numbers down. But if we progress next year, we'll hit 70 points. That's what will happen.
I think so, definitely.
Anyway, Paul, it's been a pleasure to have you on for this last game of the season. We have got a game against Palace at the weekend, actually. We should just quickly say, if your old team, West Ham, wins at Brighton and United lose at Palace, then they leapfrog United. They take the Europa League spot and United end up in that Conference League. Ten Hag's probably going to be there on Sunday. I think there's a few players back. We've always said are these players going to react? They need to react on Sunday, but Palace are a good side. Do you think they'll get the job done on the last day and it can be a new start? Or do you think this season's just done, and they'll probably get turned over 3 or 4-0.
Well, I think what Patrick Vieira's done at Palace has been great, and they're a good side. They've got plenty of pace. They've got some top players. I'm a bit worried about that game, to be fair. I'm a bit concerned about that game. And the West Ham are a good outfit, really good outfit. So I'm concerned. Because, listen, Europa Conference League is not it's not where you want to see Man United, that's for sure. Even though obviously Rome and those teams have been in it this year. But it's not the league when we're talking about the Europa League, now we're talking about the Europa Conference League, which is one below. Which that means you can't get into the Champions League on the basis of that.
Could impact on signings, couldn't it? There might be some who don't fancy that.
So it ain't going to be a walk in the park, that's for sure. So, but fingers crossed they do the job. I mean, if they're going to do the job, and if they want the inspiration to do the job, it'd be great that the new manager is going to be there in the stand. He'll be looking at these players for next season. So they're all on trial, so to speak, and hopefully they'll put the performance. And but it's not going to be easy at Palace, that's for sure. Definitely.
Actually, must mention that the incident with Patrick Vieira last night. I don't know whether you've seen it.
No.
So, it's unfair to ask you about it then. So basically, at the end of the game, Everton fans ran on the pitch. One of them's in the ear of Patrick Vieira, and there's a clip of him sort of kicking back at him. It had. I said last night, it reminded me a bit of the Cantona incident. People were like, "Wow, no, there's a fan on the pitch in Vieira's face. Cantona kicked somebody," and I said, "No, I'm not actually." Well, I didn't bother getting involved in a debate, but my point was, you've been a player. We saw it at Forest the other night, and that was disgusting.
Yeah.
I'm just, I remember the Cantona issue. You actually were there. At some point, they've got to do more to protect people who are footballers and managers. They are not counsellors. They should not be in a situation where members of the public, maybe beard up, maybe drugged up, certainly passionate, are in someone's face going, F off this, this about your mum, this about this, that, and the other. And then someone reacts and it's like, well, it is unacceptable what Patrick Vieira did. It is. It was unacceptable what Cantona did. But God, what happened to Billy Sharp the other day? If he'd got up and absolutely chins that guy, he'd probably be in prison as well. It's like they've got to, I don't know what your thoughts are, but they've got to do something. You can't have free reign running up to people and doing stuff like that.
The problem is, the policing and stewarding is so little at these grounds because of finances. Okay, that these games where there's a possibility of fans running on the pitch, it's not impossible to stop. If someone says you're going to have to stop 10,000 fans running on the pitch, you just can't do it. But there has to be some, and it's hard to kind of decide what the answer is, because it's not a case where you go, right, we've got 2 seconds left, right, all you players just come over here, and when the whistle goes, just get down the tunnel. I don't know how you actually stop it. But when you
can't go back to things like Hillsborough and stuff, can you, where you're caging people in?
You can't go back to fences and all that type of stuff. I don't know what the answer is, because when you see what happened to Billy Sharp,
disgusting.
It's pure madness, and I don't know what the answer is. We hear it on the tenors, fans, please stay off the pitch, please stay off the pitch. Now the only way to do it, and listen, it'd be unfair to the club and the players that you have to start deducting them points or big fines, but the fans are still going to run on the pitch because they're Everton staying up, or Forest getting to the playoff final.
I don't think there's a massive problem with it if the fans behave, is there? But I always think when anyone runs on the pitch, I'd hate to be I'd hate to be a Palace player last night, because it's a long way to that tunnel, and you've got thousands of Everton fans, and they're elated, and it's just it's dangerous. I mean, look, I don't know what you do.
Can you imagine if that was the case? Like, because the opposing fans obviously don't like some of the players, so. No. There was a fan who says, I really don't like that Incy. He's always moaning at the ref. He's always
going to be right in your face.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, the whistle goes and the other team have gone up and they're running on the pitch. You might go, I'm going to go for that Incy because I don't like him. I'm going to go for that Keane. And if someone hit me in the face on the football pitch, when I'm a fan, I'm reacting. You know what I mean? And should then I get in trouble on the basis of that?
Yeah.
But if someone hits me, self-defence. But when you're sort of shocking scenes at Billy Sharp, you just think, wow. It's disturbing, isn't it? Yeah. It's disturbing, and we have to try and find a solution for that.
Football's an emotional sport, and that's the great thing about it. But yeah, it's been a bad week for football in the sense of that, and yeah, I did sort of remind me of the Cantona thing, which was different, but ultimately that was provocation that just shouldn't be happening in a football ground. And there was another incident actually where a Palace player went to get the ball off Dele Alli for a throw-in, and there's this old dear, and she leans forward across and smacks the Crystal Palace fan, and then there's a little kid next to him giving him all sorts of abuse, and you're like, well, you can't start hitting footballers, like, you know, if she sort of slaps him on the arse. I mean, it probably hardly felt it, but it's like,
it's not on. It's not on. It's not on.
But, anyway, look, I'll let you get off, Paul, but it's been a pleasure having you on, and fantastic news about Reading.
Thank you very much, mate. Look forward to next year.
Definitely. Yeah. Big summer ahead for Reading, big summer ahead for Man United.
I've got a couple of players, might better do a couple of swap loan deals, I think.
Good. Have a snout round United's youth setup. They'll loan you a couple, I'm sure.
Yeah, I'll have to get to the fans to Hernard now, to be fair, a little chat with him, see what he can do for me.
Definitely. All right, mate. Take care then. I'll catch you in a bit.
Cheers, Marky boy. Have a nice weekend.
See you in a bit.
Hello, mate.
Big up to Incy there for coming on. Always enjoy it. Show slips away from us, but we go into different areas as well, which is great. I've just hit something I didn't want to hit there, so hopefully I'm still here for everybody. Yes, I'm back. There we go. I just wanted to say thanks everyone for tuning in. Make sure you smash a like on the video, and don't forget we have got Ralph Rangnick's last press conference coming up for you at 1:30. It's live. We'll be live here just after that. Get the popcorn in the microwave because it could be great. I mean, it probably won't now, but it's his last ever one. Is he going to unload and give us some bits of information? We'll have to wait and see. I'm sure there will be some bits of information in there, certainly, but I'm looking forward to that one. We'll be live just about 1:45 for that one. 1:30 is the interview, so I'll watch it, take a few notes, then we'll go live and discuss that. Obviously, all the latest transfer news as well. So please do subscribe. Bottom right-hand corner, smash a like on the video. We'll be live again at 8 o'clock tonight as well. Obviously, if anything happens, we'll go live. And I've got to fit the preview in at some point, but being as it's the last game of the season, I might just end up doing that tomorrow. So yeah, the preview will be coming up. Preview will either be 8 o'clock tonight if there's no transfer news, or it'll be tomorrow morning. But we'll get it done. We'll definitely get it done. And also, I'm just about to film and upload the latest members video, which is Timber versus Torres head-to-head, deep dive into everything that they do. I've got all the stats for it. It's going to be a really good video, so that should be going up for you sort of around midday. So if you remember, check that out. Thanks everyone for watching. I'll speak to you in a little bit.